It was a day many of us had been waiting for. The jury had been deliberating for more than 40 hours, over 6 days. And there were times when we didn't even think that they were going to return a verdict, that there might be a hung jury. They seemed to be, fighting over various aspects of the 6 counts that she was facing. Ghislaine Maxwell didn't show much emotion when the verdict came in. I think we were expecting this grand reaction, and the judge even told everyone in the court to keep their calm. But she sort of looked down briefly, poured a glass of water, and was led out unshackled from the court. She gave a very brief glance to her family to acknowledge their support. It was a huge day in many respects, but for her, I think she's obviously going to go back now into her cell in this Brooklyn federal prison and really contemplate what's happened. They, over the course of 6 days deliberating, asked for testimony from defense witnesses, from expert witnesses, from the 4 accusers in the case. And there were times where we weren't sure whether this was positive for the defendant, as it often is when juries take quite a lot of time. But the jury came back with a note to the judge today, and just before 5 p.m. said they'd reached a verdict. So everyone gathered into the courtroom itself and into the overflow rooms where a lot of the journalists were waiting. And the three family members, the siblings, there was Kevin, Isabel, and her twin Christine. They were gathered on the front row, waiting to hear the verdict. And then the judge read it out. There were 6 counts. She was found guilty on 5 of them, including the one with the heaviest penalty, which was sex trafficking, for which she now faces up to 40 years. And at 60 years old, this is a hefty sentence. It's an effective life in prison for a 60-year-old. There were victims in the courtroom and in the overflow room too, who were obviously relieved. Some of them have been waiting decades for this day in court. And after Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell's former boyfriend, died in prison in New York here, they thought that the justice would never come. So for them, it's an incredibly big day today. Ghislaine Maxwell's family was supposed to give a press conference, and they didn't in the end. They just put out a very short statement saying they believed that she was innocent and they were going to appeal. The lawyers then left the courtroom one by one. Bobby Sternheim, her lead counsel, gave a very brief statement saying that they believed she was innocent and they were sorry to hear that the jury didn't agree.
We firmly believe in Ghislaine's innocence. Obviously, we are very disappointed with the verdict. We have already started working on the appeal, and we are confident that she will be vindicated.
The other 2 kind of left quietly. The family went through the back door, and it really was a very unusual end to a quite a sensational trial that we've been hearing for the last month here in New York. The jury were obviously, in the end, convinced by the strength of the testimony of the 4 accusers. You had 3 Americans, 1 British woman, and each of them came from incredibly different backgrounds, but had very similar stories. And I think while they were very complex federal charges that they were having to untangle to get to the decision, ultimately it appeared that they did believe the women who said that they were abused, not just by Epstein but by Maxwell as well. So we'll watch for the next few days to see what happens. I'm guessing that the family will continue to argue for an appeal. Maxwell is supposedly supposed to be facing perjury charges that were separated from the other sex trafficking trial. It may be that the US federal court now drops those, considering they've had a success in the main trial. But yeah, I'm guessing that Ghislaine might now want to speak from prison, so we just have to stay tuned.